What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Student Built Startups podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Stone, entrepreneur and marketing analytics student at UMD. Today is a very special episode. We have the guest of a lifetime on the podcast today, Hunter Bergman, and we are going to be unveiling some of the details about our upcoming event, the Young Entrepreneurs Evolution Summit. And I'm super pumped to talk to you today, Hunter. So I want to have you start off kind of just saying hello to everybody and sharing a little bit about yourself, including maybe one crazy but true fact.
Man, guest of a lifetime is a lot to live up to. I don't want you to disappoint your listeners when they jam to this, you know. One interesting fact, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Dude, I love skateboarding. I like just actually went to the skate park today. I like had some other stuff going on. I was like, you know what? I'm going to quit that. I'm not going to go do this. I'm going to go shred the half pipe because it was nice out and it's a good release.
Awesome.
But yeah, no, I'm Hunter Bergman. I'm a junior/senior. You know, we're kind of all in that awkward phase sometimes of junior/senior marketing major at the University of Nebraska Lincoln with a minor in entrepreneurship. I got a little bit different like journey than most. Like a lot of people, they like graduate high school and they're like, I want to do this. Kind of like they just like go to a place and like, let's go. I convinced my mom that I was not going to go to college and that I was going to take free online courses to do that, like that I would get the same education. Right. And then, you know, signing up for college came in and like I was like pressured by my peers and they're like, yo, when are you going to college? And I was like, yeah, like that kind of sucked, you know? So like I was like, you know, bought into it, but I'm so grateful that I did because I started out at Northeast Community College and I ended up playing soccer there my first year. I met a lot of cool people. I loved it, man. I speak a little Portuguese now, like, you know, that like a little bit of, you know, it's just, it was a great starting point, you know, like, and I would always go to bat for community colleges because they're small market or like small environments. So like you can really flourish in there, right? They have the support that you need. You're not just a number in the system. And so I played soccer for a year and then I got deep into like, I was like, man, that's a lot of work. You know, I kind of like wasn't great compared to these kids that like grew up with a soccer ball in their feet in Brazil. So I was like, I'm going to go down like the more academic, you know, path. And I wanted to start an entrepreneurship club on campus. I was like asking around, you know, cause it's sometimes so hard to get your questions answered at a college or whatever. You're like, who knows the answer? But I ended up talking to this, business teacher called, her name was Angie Schaefer. And she turned out to be one of, you know, a very pivotal mentor for me in my life. She really ingrained the show me your friends and I'll show you your future, like into my mind, right? Like, and that's kind of what, you know, we're about to dive into YEE. That's kind of what we're building that on is like a community of wolves that like, you know, really play off of each other. So got into, you know, FBLA PBL is what the organization was called. And that was my first taste of leadership. You know, we started to build our local chapter up. We did events, you know, we tried to market things. We had like a dope little, like my friend was a DJ. So he like brought his DJ equipment and stuff. We tried to like, you know, recruit students and whatnot. And it was a ton of fun. You know, we went to a couple national conferences and the national conferences is what really made me love the organization because I now have friends across the United States. You know, I've got connections across the United States, not just friends, but they're like, hey, how are you doing? I've got resources if you need it. Like, and that's so powerful. You know, I didn't really realize it at the time, what that really meant, to like, you know, have that resource and friendship. But so we, went to 3 different national conferences. I competed at 2 of them, placed 7th in, social media and community service, and then 2nd place, the next year in, social media campaign and, community service project. So that was pretty dope, like 2nd place in the nation. So that was, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, do my own horn. It was a lot of fun. You know, we really wanted to win. And then, so fast forward, going from Northeast Community College, you know, I was like, I need to like continue my education. I was like highly encouraged by my peers. Inside of there, I was actually part of, our student newspaper, you know, shout out another great mentor of mine, Nancy Sutton-Smith. She taught me how to not only podcast, but use a camera and write things and really, the power of media, right? Just like we're, you know, podcasting right now and people will listen to this and consume this, and hopefully take action because of this, right? So she really taught me that. You know, there were a lot of other, you know, people at Northeast that really helped, you know, launch me into the next journey, and that was University of Nebraska Lincoln. Came here and just fell right into the Center for Entrepreneurship. I like worked my way into like a student worker position. Little did they know they would be, you know, hiring somebody who like do a lot of like random stuff. You know, I was like calling people from like, you know, different colleges and like, let's do something, let's do that, you know, and it was a lot of fun. Navigated the ropes a little bit. University is like, you know, going from a community college of like 2,500 people to a college of 25,000 was quite a jump. But I really enjoyed it. You know, I've met so many people. I've had so many great opportunities to, you know, build myself personally, professionally. The College of Business does a really good job of making sure students get connected. And, but yeah, I loved it, you know, and it's been so much fun to really reflect on like where you come and where you go, where you've started and where you're headed. But yeah, I'm excited to, you know, I don't want to give my whole autobiography in here. That's for another episode, probably.
Yeah, I want to bounce back to the very beginning there when you said you were talking about doing the online classes and not going to school. After knowing you for like a month or so, like I could not see you thriving in that environment. I feel like you're a people person and you thrive off of those connections with people. So I think
you're 100% right. And that, Cameron, I think is exactly why I'm grateful that my peers pressured me to go to college, you know, and because you're right, like it was the people that matter, you know, even like right now during the Zoom apocalypse or whatever, you know, I absolutely get drained, sitting on Zoom meetings and stuff. I'm like, just shoot me a phone call, you know, shoot me a phone call. I'm gonna go walk outside for a little bit. We can do that.
Absolutely. I tell you, it's a big difference between just chatting while you're doing other stuff versus, you know, sitting on your computer all day. Makes a difference. Well, I am super pumped about chatting about our Young Entrepreneurs Evolution Summit that is coming up. And I think this is going to be the perfect time to give like a brief overview of that event, as well as my internet connection is going bad, isn't it?
No, I was just making sure you couldn't hear my turbo booster laptop.
No, we're good.
Booting up. I was just like, is that what that sound is?
Yeah, we got an airplane in the back here, so we're good on
FTJ.
Yeah, we're gonna fuel the jet.
We'll teach them.
All right. Well, let's start off kind of just sharing a little bit about our like vision and mission, and kind of what our future aspirations are looking like for the community that we're doing, as well as the event. So, I guess if you want to start off giving just an overview of the event, and then I can talk about the community a little bit.
Yeah, man. And I think it's so important to start where it began, right? Like it's an idea, you know, you reached out to me and you're like, hey, you know, and actually I was just going through my email and, the previous, president, Ryan English, he actually forwarded your email to me. And,
that's right.
I have it pulled up right here. He goes, this is somebody that you should probably reach out to. and I was like, great, I'll reach out. So we reached out and, I was like, let's grab a virtual coffee, and we kind of hit it off. And we've been doing collaborative events with, you know, some different universities and whatnot. And, you know, I was like, we need to collaborate. Like we need to, you know, bring people together, and it's never been easier, right? I talk a lot of smack about the COVID, like COVID apocalypse. But it's really opened up the door and shown everybody how connected we can really be. And so I think where it kind of started was you reached out and you're like, hey, you know, I want to interview students on the podcast. And I was like, well, what if we did a big event, you know, and brought everybody together and had like the podcast around it. So we started meeting on Sundays and, you know, added one person a weekend. Like, you know, it seemed like one person came in and another person came in, and now we're at like 4 or 5 people. You know, hopefully we double that, you know, this next weekend. And it's been fun to really see people start becoming a community, right? Like now we've got people from several different like colleges who are kind of working towards, you know, not only building a community but supporting each other, you know, helping each other. You know, with whatever their student organization is, you know, getting them prepared for, you know, the next semester or whatever it might be. But, you know, and I think the whole, you know, going back to like our mission, right, is to really be able to plug students who would not be able to get plugged into an entrepreneurial ecosystem, right? Like, you know, we meet with this girl, her name is Sierra, right? I believe she's such a great girl. Sierra is, she's great. She's a freshman / sophomore. She's great, but UNK doesn't really have a developed ecosystem and a lot of people who are, hungry to just build things, right? And I think, they might be, right? They're out there, right? But to me, it's not like a harnessed thing, And so I want to be able to plug those students directly into a community of people. Like I use the term eating with wolves, right? Like I use that term as like, when you're here, you're like, people are building stuff, just in the last call we had one girl who, was got her work published in a scientific journal for her, like coronavirus research, right? I mean, that's so cool. I mean, it's also like shows you the level of people that are out there, and I think when you're surrounded by the average of the 5 people you surround yourself by, I really want to create a community that when you show up to it, you're surrounded by 5 people that you want to be, right? Or that you're aspiring to be, that you can learn from, that hold you accountable, right? Accountability, but also like support and motivation too, man. Like one of the core values that I think that we kind of have really started to build inside of there is supporting each other, sharing stuff on Instagram, really just going back and forth with things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, you and I kind of have a very similar like vision of what we want to do with this. Cause like when I reached out to you or reached out to whoever I reached out to originally, cause like I remember him saying like, I'm going to forward this to somebody who would be more interested. I'm graduated, but I'll pass it on. I'm like, okay, we'll see what happens. I
try to like scoot forward because of my background. I just nailed my knee on this. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. It added a little bit of an extra touch of realism.
This is the world we live in, dog.
It is. And, it's, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good, but you make it work. Anyways, the kind of vision we have, that's what I was talking about. So yeah, like I have the same experience at UMD. So at UMD, we don't have a really developed entrepreneurial kind of ecosystem there. It's kind of, we have people who are interested in entrepreneurship, but there's not really like a developed club. There's not like a mentor you can go to and talk to about this kind of stuff. So that was why I started the podcast, and I wanted to connect these people. And then meeting you at the event idea, like I'm like, this is a way to really amplify the growth of this, kind of connecting people on a much larger scale too, with this community on top of it. And yeah, so far, every Sunday we've been meeting, and I mean, if we can just continue that, where we bring another person in every Sunday and plug them into the group, and they can learn a little bit, they can provide some help, we can help them, everybody collaborates, and we can build a community of wolves, and we can all kind of benefit from each other and help each other. So that's what we're all about. And I'm really, really, really looking forward to this event that we're doing and kind of transferring these like ambitious people into our community and plugging them in so they can all get to know each other. So
yeah, and I think it's so important to know, like before we even dive deep into the event, outline, I think it's so important to note that the people who meet with us Sunday are like excited to show up and like hang out, and contribute to something, and I think when there's an idea in the room and people can feel it and you can get rallied behind it, it's different, there's energy, right? Even over Zoom, like in our last session, we were like collaborating, throwing ideas out there, and it was great. Like, everybody was just like, we came into a couple problems with the summit, and which I'm sure we'll dive into a little bit later. But, it's been so interesting to see, people just light up, man. Like everybody's just, barely even knows each other. And now we're sitting in a room, we should build this or we should do that, and it's so exciting for me. Like, we're only like two or 3 weeks into this. You know what I'm saying? Like, Like we haven't even really scraped the iceberg, like you said, we're doubling almost every weekend. So like if we could double this weekend, next weekend, it's going to get pretty chaotic. But, I think it's so important to go back to the whole purpose of building a community where people can find help and support, but really feel like they have a place, man. Like, entrepreneurs it's a lonely lifestyle. I come from a town of 2,500 people, and nobody even there was small business owners, right? There was for sure small business owners, but it wasn't like a valid career path. I remember telling my friends in high school, like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to build a company. Do you believe in me? And they're like, we don't. I mean, cool, but like, I don't think you got it, And fast forward like five years later, and we're like doing stuff, you know, like we're building things, you know, and it's exciting to be able to open that opportunity and you know, belief system into other people who don't really have that in their current environments, you know, really, you know, and I want to focus on like Midwest, right? Like opening up the Midwest and tapping into that talent, you know, that's in the rural Nebraska or, you know, in rural Minnesota or wherever it's lying into, just opening up, say like, there's a place for you here, you know, like we are here for you. You have a spot here. You know, if you want to elevate, if you want to put in the work and the time and show people, you know, how much you care about, you know, whatever your idea is or whatever, we'll make it happen. You know, we can help you go from idea to execution.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm right on the same page with you about the Midwest. I feel like the Midwest is filled with people who have entrepreneurial ambitions. And it's kind of odd because there's a lot of rural areas in the Midwest where there's like, you're separated from everybody. And there's not really this, like, I guess, like culture of entrepreneurship. So sometimes it's kind of daunting to be able to like think about taking that path. But when you get plugged into a community of people that have that same like-minded vision, it makes things seem a lot more realistic. It's not as like far-fetched as it seemed beforehand. So, and also just like the Midwest, I feel like is such a different culture than like Silicon Valley. It's like, it seems like a more humble kind of beginnings, I guess. And I think we want to make sure.
Can we swear on this podcast? Can we swear on this podcast?
I don't care. Like,
it's one of those things where I think the Valley is so overrated. Like, it was one thing, you know, that's like, everybody was like, damn, that place is dope. Like, I just need to make it to the Valley. That's where I need to be. But that's bullshit, you know? Like, it really is, you know? The only reason why is because that's where people are like, oh, the talent and tech are here. But like, no, like, the talent and tech are there because that's where the money is at, right? So like, now, you know, I just got off a call with a venture capitalist from Florida yesterday. And we were just catching up, you know? Like, it's like you could just build those into that. And that's one thing that we really, futuristically speaking, we want to be able to do micro funding opportunities. And I can really see us collaborating with, you know, like high schools, and like other like youth entrepreneurship programs because, you know, it's one thing to sit in a room with a successful guy saying, oh yeah, I made 1.5 million last year, right? Like it's one thing to do that and like, oh, that's cool. Like I aspire to be you, but it's another thing to meet a college kid, like grinding out of his dorm room, hustling and like, you know, him saying, hey, like, this isn't for everybody. You better put your seatbelt on and be prepared to like fuel the jet, you know, like it's not for everybody and that's okay. But there is a place for you, even if you don't want to like build a high growth startup or a small business or whatever. But like entrepreneurship isn't necessarily just like making a bunch of money or anything. It's so like over dramatized. To me, entrepreneurship is simply like taking action. Right. And actually the word entrepreneur, the Latin root is to undertake. And I think if you have an idea, you know, even if you're inside of a company, right? How employable can you be if you know how to identify a problem, create an idea around it and then solve that problem? Yeah. How employable will you be? Like that will be, you'll be pretty employable, right? Like, you know, you have critical thinking skills. You understand how to navigate turbulent environments. Adaptability is insane. I mean, literally we just watched COVID shove the next 10 years off a fucking cliff, dog. Like we don't even go to, you know, we don't have music anymore. We don't have live music anymore. Like that was events. That was several billion-dollar industries extremely disrupted. And it's going to continuously, it's not, people are like, oh, I can't wait till things go back to the same. No, it's like not going to be the same anymore. You know, people need to realize that what happened and consumer preferences are changing. We're still probably going to use Zoom to meet when it's most convenient. Like, the game has changed and it's time for the next generation of people to grab it and really maximize the potential.
Yeah. And the big thing about this, like Zoom, like 2 years ago, you would have like called somebody and be like, hey, you want to jump on a Zoom and chat over video? They'd be like, what? Gross. Like, no. And now it's like normal. So like you can connect with somebody in Florida over Zoom and it's like a normal thing. They do it every day. Whereas 2 years ago, that might have been seemed like a little more outlandish than it is in the present moment. So it's like a new like access to capital, resources, to people, to anything that you want to community. Yeah. it's just a whole new world, like like
It's
the movie.
a whole new world.
Yeah,
No, but it really, and actually, I was on a call with a guy today, and he asked me, it was like, what are you most interested in right now, technology wise? And I was like, dude, honestly, the way that we're going to do transactions, the way that things are going to happen. I mean, we have Elon Musk tweeting about AMC and GameStop and Dogecoin, and like literally to me, it's like market manipulation happening. Like somebody can tweet something, and the market's going to go up. Like, I mean. To me, I mean, it might not directly be market manipulation, but I think it's going to change the game on how we trade. I mean, how we do things, how we really perceive the value of currency and money and transactions. Like, what happens with when one day, like, you don't really have control of your currency, or maybe you do have control of your currency, but it's called Dogecoin, right? Like what does that even, what does that even mean, right? And technology evolves at such a rapid rate that I believe it can be too late before you realize what's really going on. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, social media has had extremely negative effects and consequences to mental health. It's also been really good for small businesses to be able to get seen and pay for advertising. It's very good with targeted ads,
Absolutely. And I'm gonna put a little like warning out there that I thoroughly don't believe Dogecoin will ever be our currency, but like if it does become, like, you can come after me and like say I told you so, like you're wrong. But
I'm holding Dogecoin right now. You can't tell me I can't buy some.
But yeah, so one thing I also wanted to touch on was team, the idea of a team, because when I started my podcast, I was like, screw a team. I'm not working with anybody. I am doing this by myself. I don't need help. And wow, I pulled something off. It was painful, to be honest, getting it off the ground by myself, and it took way too long. And getting plugged in to a team that, I mean, Hunter, you put together like 2/3 of the people on our team so far. It's been a way different experience, and I totally had a huge mindset shift of like how a team is useful, and like, it's great. So
it's leadership, dog. It's leadership. I'm telling you,
if somebody is out there right now, they're thinking about doing something, and you are considering like doing the lone wolf thing, like, just take a moment and consider like trying to build a team, getting like 2 or 3 friends that that are ambitious and like willing to help, and kind of make them actually like a part of what you're doing. Don't just ask them to do something, but like, give them like, like some skin in the game, and see how that goes. And I tell you, it's probably something you will not regret doing. So,
and I think oftentimes when people struggle with building and integrating into teams, it's because they don't know how to lead a team. They don't know what it means to understand communication styles and understand what motivates people, right? This guy, Napoleon Hill, wrote this book called Think and Grow Rich. And in one of his, I would call it kind of like a proverb. Probably going to get hated on for that. But no, it's like you can't ask of somebody without getting them a definite motive, right? So like if I tell you, build me this, like there has to be a reason they want to build that for you, And I think, one thing for me is, especially that I would love to integrate into YEE, is, leadership. Like, it's so important to be able to form a team and say, hey, like, what motivates you? How can I give you praise? Like, cause everybody receives praise and motivation differently, 100% differently. Like what one teammate might really love, another teammate is going to absolutely hate, right? It could be it's mind boggling to me, but if you have to really understand and get intuitively, like an intuitive understanding of who they are. So when you're at a meeting and something is, say there's stress, there's like a stress factor, something didn't get done and a client's mad, the team's going to be stressed, high alert, right? Having like a solid emotional IQ to say, hey, it's a stressful situation, guys. It's, at the end of the day, we're also going to have our birthdays. We can go home, right? We can go home. But first of all, let's identify the problem, come together and figure out a way to solve it. And then let's go home and have a beer, right? Like, I think it's so easy to get caught up in the moment and get frustrated and all these things, but that really doesn't help anybody, right? Like the definition of an organization is just a couple people going in the same direction towards like one goal, right? And being able to lead that team, or like, you know, not even leadership doesn't even mean like being the point man on a team. It's you know, asking somebody, hey, like, how are you doing? You know, what can I do for you today? Right? You know, or maybe it's boosting them up. Maybe it's saying, hey, that idea is great. I think you can do that. You know, it's just maybe filling their bucket a little bit differently, you know? And again, like this community is going to hopefully be able to provide a place where people can exercise, you know, their leadership abilities and learn and develop it, by like building teams and like, you know, assessing problems and doing something. You know, obviously we haven't still quite like vetted that out yet, right? But again, you know, when people get hired, like what do they need, right? Like, you know, they need to be able to like speak and talk to people, understand, you know, how to work with people. Like that's, if you told me one thing that every single person needed, it's that, is being able to understand other people's, you know, personalities, their own emotions and personalities. Because like, I'll be honest, you know, I have, I'm not sure if anybody's a huge fan of the Clifton Strengths Finder, but my number one strength is command. And I'm an intense person. You know, Cameron knows this. Cameron knows is like I have a big personality when you're sitting in the same room with me. And like sometimes that can smother people and it doesn't taste good for them, right? It doesn't taste good for me either because I have great intentions. But it's about perception and, you know, perspective of what is really happening in there, and asking them, hey, what's going on? You know, like, what did you think of that meeting? What do you think of my leadership style? You know, is there something that you would prefer I don't do? And you'd be surprised how many people don't have those conversations.
Yeah. One thing I want to bounce back to that you said, you mentioned like, you know, stopping and asking somebody like, what can I do for you? That really resonated with me because I feel like a lot of people have this idea of leadership as, you know, you have a group of people and you're telling them what to do and you're saying, okay, you do this, you do that, and then we'll have this whole thing done by this date, when that's not exactly what leadership is. I feel like leadership is really like what, like, yeah, like you said it, like what can you do for your team to make them operate efficiently? Because you're kind of that person that's got to fill in the gaps and make sure that everything is amended properly, not just like telling people what they need to do and when it needs to be done, but being the mold for the whole team. And it's, once you get into it, it's a lot different than you think it is beforehand. So
yeah, man, it's powerful stuff. It's powerful stuff. I think I'm telling you, if you go out and you interview 100 CEOs, you know, high quality executives that run multi-million-dollar businesses, they say like the key to success is people, investing in people. In one of my conversations with one of those high level executives, he said, don't invest in, you know, companies or things like that. Invest in people, right? Invest in your people and good things will come. Right. Yeah. And, I think that's, you know, what we're trying to do is invest back into this community, kind of build it up and allow them to find a place and have access to resources that they might not have, right? Or opportunities that they might not have, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if we mentioned this, but the community is going to be on Slack, which is a channel-based messaging platform, kind of like Discord. I'm sure that if you're listening to this right now, you're probably familiar with it. But I just wanted to put that out there so everybody knows that it is on Slack. And I will put the link to our community on the show notes page. It may or may not be active the day this is published, but I would go check for it, click it. If you're interested at all, sign up, get plugged in, introduce yourself, and we are happy to like add you to the Young Entrepreneurs Evolution community and get you plugged into the community. So
let's dive into the event, man. Let's dive into the event.
Yes, that's what I was moving on to. We're going to transition over to the event. I am like absolutely thrilled for this event. Now, just a quick, you know, pre-message here. We are still finalizing a couple of the details on the event, but we have the structure there. We have like the big things locked down. Now, like a little overview of the event. We have more than 5 universities that are going to be attending, students from these universities, and we are putting together a speaker session. Drew Donaldson from like last year, I interviewed him on the podcast. He's going to be giving a speaker session on how to craft a unique marketing strategy for your business. And he has a incredible like analogy that he's going to be like using to present this message. So it's not something you're going to want to miss. And huge shout out to Drew. He's been a super great help because we reached out to a lot of people to be speakers, and he came through. So if you're listening to this, Drew, I really appreciate you, and I look forward to having you speak at the event. So Hunter, if you want to maybe talk about our networking session, as well as kind of transitioning in towards that second day, what's going on there, that would be great.
Totally. So I want to say that it's going to be hosted on this new platform called Run the World. And Run the World is a virtual conference tool that a lot of people are using right now. It's kind of up and coming. They're a startup themselves. And it's great because it'll have different functionalities. It's not like you're sitting in front of a Zoom thing. We have this instant networking thing. It's called a cocktail mixer. And this cocktail mixer will randomly select a person to match you with, and you talk to them for 5 minutes. It's kind of like speed dating, but speed networking kind of thing. And it's a lot of fun. It's actually interactive. You see things swoop around, and the cool thing about the platform is you can follow that person's account. And so instead of saying, hey, what's your contact information right here, you can actually follow their account, and usually they'll have a LinkedIn that you can go and follow up with them on LinkedIn and say, hey, it was so much fun to meet you here. One thing that we really wanted to hit on is, what do we want our attendees to feel, and we want them to feel like they're part of our community, right? Again, we mentioned previously in the podcast, we've been meeting every Sunday for more than an hour every Sunday planning this. But inside of those planning is making jokes, talking about life, and becoming friends, right? I've never met Cameron in person, but I feel like I've been friends with him for 2 years already. It's one of those things where it's you don't know who's really out there until you get into a community and you're like, damn, these kids are actually cool. And that's the culture, right? That's the culture. When you come here, you're going to experience what it means to be part of YEE. YEE. I mean, try saying YEE without a smile, right? You just can't do it, right? And that's how I know we're on to something. I talked to somebody the other day, and they're like, YEE, we're having a meeting for YEE. And I was like, yeah, say it again. Yeah, I'm so stoked, man. And again, the summit could be crash and burn or whatever, but it's the people that right now that we're working with and developing with, it's so much fun to see if we can take an idea to execution. This is entrepreneurship, and this is identifying a problem, right? Our problem is some of the members in our group just have not been able to plug into a solidified ecosystem with entrepreneurial stories, success stories, because that's part of it, is knowing that it's possible for you to do, and then kind of creating a roadmap. We're still kind of ironing out the details, but the most important thing is we're trying. We're going to try and do it, and we're going to, build it out. And the cool thing is that already about 18 people believe in us, right? So, 18 people are there, and maybe they know one person or something like that, and we can continue growing.
Absolutely. I have high hopes for our event. Not to toot our own horn, but I think it's going to be something to remember after attending. I think you're going to walk away being like, wow, that was a life-changing event, especially if you haven't ever been plugged into some sort of entrepreneurial community. You're going to be surprised by the amount of young entrepreneurs that are out there that have the same mindset as you. So I'm just telling you now, if you're listening, go sign up, go register for the event. The link to the registration page will be in the show notes as well. Click that, register, answer a few questions in our form, and we're going to make sure to keep you updated on changes about the event, as well as reminders of when it's going to be, so you won't forget. So is there anything else we wanted to cover about the summit? Because I know before we wrap up, I wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the stuff that we've kind of learned along the way, and then we can wrap it up after that. So
yeah, man, I think, I have learned so much about what it goes into in planning something like this. I've helped plan a couple other summits before, but it's one of those things where I've always had somebody kind of above that was kind of crafting the things, but now it's us, it's going to rely on us to make it good, and so, and it's not us, it's a team. That's, jumping back into there, we have a team of rock stars right now, and like everybody just jumping in and like, hey, this is my skill set. This is where I can plug in. And we're like, great, do that. You know, just today we were talking about how I was trying to build this website, but I'm like not really a web developer. And some other guy's like, hey, like I want to help you build this site. Like, and I'm like, great, that's the perfect mesh. And I love seeing that because not only will he be able to build us a site and be able to get our message out there even more, but he will be able to put that on his resume if he needs it, right? He probably doesn't even need it, right? but you know, who uses resumes anymore? It's all on the LinkedIn. But then it'll go from him building this thing and he's now has his thumbprint on it. And that's what I really want everybody to know is you can impact this organization, right? Like you can literally join our team and say, hey, I want to do this. And we're like, let's go. What do you need to help? Like what can we do to help you?
Yeah, it's going to be a community for young entrepreneurs made by young entrepreneurs, which I stole from you from our meeting the other night. So
I was going to say, you better write that one down.
Yeah, I should. We got to make sure to put that on our Slack community description. But yeah, I've learned a lot from this experience too. Mostly, like I mentioned earlier, this whole team building experience. I've had like group projects in school where I take the leadership role, and I like that kind of stuff. But this is like a whole nother animal. You don't have any outline to follow or any script of like what you need to do. It's kind of like we gotta set the rules and kind of define our own game. So that's been a learning experience. Been really good. I'm glad to have a partner in this organization venture that is like ambitious and outgoing as you, because I lack a little bit in some of the more extra can't think of the word now.
Extraneous. Oh, extraneous details is what I was thinking you were gonna say.
But yeah, I feel like there's just a lot of stuff that I've learned. I mean, especially building partnerships with other organizations. You plugged us in with the CEO, with Justin, the Collegiate Entrepreneurship Organization. And I feel like that's going to be a really valuable partnership that we have with having access to somebody that's so involved in that organization there, that's got a very similar kind of vision or kind of vibe that we do. They got young entrepreneurs connecting each other just in a little bit of a different format.
And I'm telling you, when you eat with wolves, man, you become a wolf, right? Like you see how they eat, you see how they hunt, you see their habits and their who they are and what it takes to be that wolf, right? And I use this wolf as an analogy for somebody who is destined to achieve, you know, their greatness, right? Like fully honed in on what they want in life and that they're going to get it, right? And it's not the fact that everybody has it just built out and ready to go, right? Because that's so much weight on somebody's shoulders, right? But like somebody who is willing to come in early and stay late and, you know, decide, hey, I want to get into this course and go out and like learn how to do it, right? Yeah, I'm stoked, man. It's going to be great. And again, it's the culture of us, right? Like you're going to listen to this and kind of feel the chemistry that Cameron and I have. But like, I'm telling you, you come into one of these Sunday meetings with us, you're going to walk away and you're like, dude, those guys are dope, right? Like it's going to be fun, right? And you're going to have fun. You're going to walk away smiling and energized. And like you just made 10 new friends, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And before we wrap up, to our outro and whatnot, I want to make sure that everybody knows where to follow us on social media. So we are on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We don't have any content yet because we have not fueled the jet yet. But hopefully by the time this podcast is released, we have at least one post on all of our platforms. But you can follow us at ye.community or ye_community. It's going to be one of those two on every platform. So I encourage you to go give us a follow and get plugged into the Slack and all that stuff that I mentioned earlier. Did you have anything you wanted to share before we
YoungEntrepreneursEvolution.com. If you looking for that. Ye was taken, I believe. I think ye was taken, so we had to go with the longer verb instead of the acronym. Follow us on social medias too. Like follow like us. Like if you go to the ye_community, right? I think Cameron and I's Instagram and stuff will be in there. Like go give us a follow. You know, follow us because it's the people behind YEE that make YEE such a exciting thing, right? Like we're all working on our own things. Like this is purely like a Sunday project. Like Cameron probably gets frustrated with me because I like never respond to him until the weekend. I was like, great, now I can breathe, right? Like now, like, hey, what's up? Like, when are we meeting? That kind of thing. And I always tell him like, yo, are you taking notes right now? Like, cause like I suck at taking notes, I can't really like, it just lives in my head and then dies there, and I think that's a good teamwork and collaboration. But follow our personal socials, DM us, like say what's up, like don't be a stranger, like virtually connect with us.
Yeah. And also I just want to say this was not this whole event thing wasn't just an elaborate plan to get you on the podcast and then kind of just ditch you and leave. But I just thought that was a funny thought that ran through my head. Like this was just a big scheme to get you on the podcast, but I did get that. I initially asked to get you on the podcast and I did. So,
you can check that box then, right?
Yeah,
you can check the box. Tell your producer that he's cool with it.
Oh yeah. My producer's, he's a good guy.
So awesome, man. Well, thank you. It's so much fun. I'm glad that you reached out to me, and I want, again, a little nugget of wisdom for people is, say yes to some things, follow leads, get curious, right? Like what does this person want? I'm going to give him a phone call, right? Because you're only 2 messages away from building something completely new, right? And being open to those things is just powerful. Yeah.
So I think that's a really good spot to end with. So everybody listening, one more time, follow us, ye.community, ye_community. Go register for the event. Sign up for the Slack. I know it's a lot of different things, but at least pick one of them to do. And then, or all of them. We'd prefer all of them. But so yeah, that wraps it up for this episode, guys. Hunter, super happy to have you on the podcast. Really glad to check that off of my list, and yeah, so I'll make sure to catch you on the next episode, everyone, and hang in there. And yeah, like I just said, say yes to something.